It's Tuesday, the 16th of August 2016. I am Robin Yellow, and this is Techtasm, episode 27, Audi Count Dracula. And with me again, because nobody else has such a shiny new microphone, is Mr. James Woodall.
It is very shiny. And I have to ask, have you been watching the Olympics?
I've been watching it almost continually since it started.
Really?
Yes. I've got javelin-shaped eyes.
Okay, I have to say I watched it for the first time today. Heard it for a bit on the radio, but I think the time zone's throwing me.
It is. Well, the time zone's pretty bad. It means you've got to stay up till 3 in the morning, almost every night, which is not so good for work. But there you go. Well, this week, listeners, James and I will be looking at Audi's new Smart City Play, Google's new OS, and Android gets hacked again. And we'll be judging these stories and some more to tell you if they are a Techtasm, which is a blend of tech for technology and tasm for phantasm, something existing only in a person's mind. So without further drivel, let's get on with the show. Well, nameless journo droid in the BBC reported this week that Audi cars are going to start talking to traffic lights, says the German company. Now, they're introducing a technology, James, that will allow cars to communicate directly with the traffic lights, and it will tell drivers when the lights are due to turn green and when they will not make it before a light turns red. Now, have you heard of this vehicle-to-infrastructure, V2I technology?
I've never heard of it before, but this is clearly one of the steps that we need to go through in order to have autonomous vehicles and so forth. Because, of course, the vehicle needs to know things, right, and about the city and what's happening and so forth. I hadn't heard of it before.
I've heard of V2V.
Yes. So the idea that the traffic lights are beaming out information is pretty clever. So, yeah, good idea.
Well, apparently this has been introduced already into A4 models built after the 1st of June this year and will be put into some Q7 models next year. Now, I think initially they're planning to roll out this capability in between 5 and 7 US cities, one at a time this year. But Audi haven't disclosed which cities they will be.
So is it a standard then? Am I missing something? I didn't... for them to roll it out would mean the traffic light manufacturers would be on board, clearly. So I'm presuming there's a standard for it.
Well, presumably they're choosing these cities because they've either got recently upgraded infrastructure or they've been putting in these traffic light V2I systems for some time. Because as you say, it's totally dependent on there being some standardized system for reporting this information. Yeah. Though actually it could be just transmitted across the internet to the car or to a phone, couldn't it? I mean, it's city-wide knowledge. It doesn't have to be done with a local loop, does it? But
it would have to be pretty quick, though. I mean, you couldn't have connectivity blackouts and whatever. I mean, I'm thinking, is it maybe just a crude system where it just looks at the lights and works out when it's going to go green or not, but I guess it can't.
Well, no, because it needs to anticipate, doesn't it? It's saying it will count you down to it going red. So if it's green, it starts counting 5, 4, 3, 2, and then it goes amber, 2, and then 1 green, maybe. So it must be anticipating the change. Therefore, the traffic light system must be reporting that data somehow.
Yeah, it would make sense for VW to be behind this, being one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. So they've got certainly the weight behind it to be able to push this kind of thing through.
Well, they need something, don't they? Because they've been going through such a PR crisis in the United States with Dieselgate. Looks like a good system. Do you think it could be spoofed, James?
I don't think it really matters. If it's passive information...
Well, imagine people driving their Audis in, San Francisco or wherever this is going to be rolled out, and they start depending on it accurately predicting the lights changing so they can anticipate when it's going to go green, so they're speeding up towards the lights, and then somebody spoofs it and lies about the lights changing and causes an accident. Isn't that a possibility?
Well, it definitely is. I don't know. I guess if it is an open system, then hopefully people would pore over it and see if it's.
Oh, it's actually an open system.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know any. If it is, then that would be the best way of going about it.
Well, I bet you it's not. I bet you it's some proprietary system. Maybe it's an open standard for the protocol and communication, but the systems themselves will be closed. But as you said, yes, in order to interoperate, Audi and these cities must have signed up to some common data exchange protocol.
Yeah.
Therefore, the protocol is open, right?
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I don't know. It's really interesting. I don't know.
Would the car need a certificate then to say this is valid telemetry and information from this city? You know, would the data need to be signed by the city, as it were, to be trusted?
There's a lot of what ifs here, and I think the thing is the BBC aren't known for tech detail, so I think maybe I need to do a bit more reading. Look, the concept of it sounds really, really, really interesting. The reality is probably a lot more complicated than we could possibly cover.
Indeed. Well, is it a Techtasm?
I don't know, because it's
There's not enough information, is it?
Yeah,
Nameless
exactly.
Jono Droid has not provided enough detail for us.
Damn it, Jono Droid. Oh.
Must try harder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on. Rob Price, not anonymous, in Business Insider, has been writing about Google's new operating system.
Another one?
Another one, because you can't have enough, supposedly. This one, it was found, it seems almost by accident, in the code-sharing website GitHub, where Google have started to develop in the open a brand new operating system called Fuchsia. And that's clearly a code name. I'm sure it won't be called that when it is released to the wild. But interestingly enough, Fuchsia is not based on Linux, which is really, really interesting. You know, writing
both Chrome OS and Android are based on Linux.
Yeah, absolutely, and for good reasons, because building an operating system from scratch is really hard work. You know, really, really hard work. And all of the operating systems out there today are based on very well-established cores. I mean, you know, you mentioned Android is based on Linux. Chrome OS is based on Linux. I mean, Windows 10 is in fact built on NT, which is from the early 90s. Mac OS is built on FreeBSD, which is, well, not FreeBSD, BSD, which goes back to, what, the 70s, 80s?
Unix.
Yeah, so building a new operating system from scratch, why?
However, there are a lot of operating systems that most people don't normally come across, like what's the one that runs in cars that's owned by BlackBerry?
Oh, QNX.
QNX. So there are operating systems that are not generally...
That's Linux based, though. I'm pretty sure that's
Linux. Is it? Right. No, I thought QNX wasn't Linux. It had all these real-time features that you actually were impossible to get in Linux because of the way the processes are protected from the kernel.
It is quick Wikipediaing here.
Oh.
It's not Linux. It's a Unix-like OS. It's a real-time OS, but it is possible to add real-time OS features to Linux.
Is it perhaps that Android has got just too much functionality for an embedded system? Because I'm assuming this OS is being aimed at Internet of Things embedded systems, isn't it?
They haven't really said. I mean, further down the article, it's the author asks himself, what is Fuchsia actually for? And the answer is we don't know, but there's plenty of speculation. I mean, there's hints at the code that it can go into various embedded devices, but there's also hints that it can go into mobile devices and desktop computers. So, look, at this stage, let's be honest, Google haven't actually released a lot of information about Fuchsia. Bits of code have kind of made its way onto the web, really. It's clearly a very, very early
Do you think
project.
it's possible, because I did read that the primary development language for this is Dart, which is one of their languages like Go, which isn't Java.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a way of clean rooming a development of an OS to avoid the kind of nasty litigation they've been going through with Oracle?
I mean, that is possible, but then Oracle is the Java problem. There's nothing to stop you from running a different language on top of Linux. I mean, Microsoft do it quite successfully with C#. I mean, there's a full .NET runtime, which is open source.
Yeah, true. They bought that though, didn't they? I mean, they didn't develop it themselves.
Microsoft.
Yeah, wasn't it? Wasn't that the Mono project?
Yes, it was. Although they did have their own open source version of the .NET framework that they never maintained, called Razor, I believe. But hey, that's a topic for another day.
Eraser that from our memories then.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking in the Magenta source code. 71% of it is traditional C.
Okay.
That's fun for nobody.
Yeah, that's fun for nobody, but of course it's got that performance that you need to make stuff work at speed.
Yeah, absolutely. C is the closest thing you're going to get to assembler, and which is great without actually writing assembler.
Well, all I've got to say to that is 110.0.111.0.0.110.
I agree. But translating that into English, is this a Techtasm?
When I first saw it, I thought, yep, total Techtasm. Who the hell needs a third OS? When all they've been talking about for the last couple of years is the merger of Chrome OS and Android to reduce the number of OSs that they have to support. But now you've gone into a little bit of detail. While we don't know the answer, but we could possibly speculate it is an OS to merge the existing two into a single OS so that one doesn't subvert the other and neither loses their strong points, or a real-time operating system for the Internet of Things. It kind of makes sense in that context. So I don't think this is a Techtasm.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, in James's favourite publication, Ars Technica, Tom Mendelsohn reported there has been a secure boot snafu, as he describes it. Situation normal, all fouled up, I believe that stands for, James.
Yes, definitely.
Microsoft has leaked the backdoor key to secure boot. Now, what they've done is they've inadvertently demonstrated the intrinsic security problem of including a universal backdoor into its software by accidentally leaking its so-called golden key, which allows users to unlock any device that's supposed to be protected by secure boot, such as phones and tablets. Now, the golden keys were found by these two hackers in March this year, and they've just posted it on a website with a description of Microsoft security errors and its seeming reluctance to patch the issue. Now, the researchers note that this snafu is a real-world demonstration of the lack of wisdom in the FBI's recent demands for universal backdoors in Apple devices. Now, James, for the uninitiated, could you explain what is a secure boot?
The idea being that the operating system, when it boots, say Windows, can verify that it's the core code in the kernel has not been tampered with when it boots up. So you don't have anything hanging around to steal low-level signals like keyboard presses and things that your operating system generally wouldn't be able to detect. So it protects against some really nasty, very clever hacks. I guess, well, not anymore.
Have I got a secure boot on my Android phone?
On your Android phone? I don't. I suppose it would depend on the. It would depend on the OEM. I'm guessing. I know that your Chromebook definitely does.
It does, right? Okay.
Well, no. Well, does it or doesn't it? I mean, it reinstalls the OS every time you reboot. So
that's correct. It maintains 2 copies of the operating system, or we've talked about in a previous show, that it alternates between the 2 of them. So if one of the runtimes is infected as you're using the computer somehow, it doesn't matter, because when you reboot, it's all wiped from scratch. Therefore, either hackers leave it alone, or they can't be bothered, or it's too difficult to actually get at. The researchers apparently, within finding this golden key, have discovered a way to alter the tasks executed by UEFI at boot.
Yeah.
Which now, what is UEFI?
It's the bootloader that works out what to boot and when and in what order. Because obviously, booting up an operating system is a pretty complicated task.
Unified Extensible Firmware Interface is a specification that defines a software interface between an OS and platform firmware. Not sure that makes it any clearer.
Well, this kind of thing needs to be secure, though, because anything that's booted first into the kernel is kind of untouchable. So it makes sense for technologies like Secure Boot to exist, but of course they need to be secure. And but going back to the point of the back door, I think this is the bigger problem. I mean, this article clearly states this is not really much of a security problem, because you need to be at the PC physically there to get access to change it. Okay, that's not
so.
Okay.
If you've got a Windows PC with UEFI boot, don't worry about it. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But what this does say, though, is, going back to your earlier point, backdoors don't work, because if Microsoft can accidentally release the backdoor, what's to stop Google doing it with Android, or Apple doing it with iOS, or all these other companies where the FBI is, as you're saying, is Apple, please put a backdoor into your iPhone so we can get access to it. Well, that doesn't work. I mean, it's not secure then.
Somebody at Microsoft thought it would be all okay to use this golden key to lock up their UEFI, the secure boot, and therefore it looks like they've fulfilled the criteria for a Techtasm. They've imagined they would be secure, but they haven't been. How are you calling it, James?
It's backdoors are a Techtasm. They, unfortunately, though, they will happen, and this story will come again and again.
It will. Sad.
Okay. Well, I think this is serious tone of voice time.
Oh, you mean we're going to get more serious?
Serious tone of voice. Christian DeLupa in Digital Trends has reported, and the article is a bit of a throwback to Dad's Army. Don't panic, but there's a bug in Linux leaving 80% of all Android users open to hacks.
Not another one.
So basically, there was a flaw that was introduced in Linux 3.6, which goes back to 2012. And this allows a connection between something external that is not encrypted, so HTTP as opposed to HTTPS, where malicious code can be injected into the communication channel and executed on the device. So somebody could intercept, let's say you're downloading a web page, somebody can intercept that, not part of the communication, and start executing code on your device. That's pretty scary. Now, a lot of communications today are HTTPS, but if you're using that one non-secure website, you're leaving yourself open. And the crazy thing about this is not just an Android problem, because it's in Linux. This could affect any Linux-based device that uses 3.6.
Oh, which is
your set-top box. It's your router. It's maybe your smartwatch. Linux is everywhere.
Yes, that's right. And often, security experts talk about the router in your home being the place where a hacker would gain access to your data, not your phone or your laptop, because one, it's connected to the internet, and two, it's unlikely that you're updating the firmware on it regularly to patch this stuff, even if the manufacturer of your router is patching it anyway. So, should we all be, running for the hills and going off grid, James?
I think we're way past that. We're not in Kansas anymore. I guess what this does is this highlights certainly to developers that you just can't trust components that you're using. And I've always thought this about open source products. The idea that people are developing it in the community, while very noble, means that if no one's really paying for it, who's guarding it and checking it?
Well, it's dependent on companies like Google, like Facebook, like Oracle even, to contribute to these open source projects, to keep them live and active and fresh. But the open source community, of course, would maintain that their systems are more secure because it's got more pairs of more eyeballs looking at it, looking for these flaws, and it can be fixed and patched more quickly by the community than it can in a commercial setting. So also, the motivation for a commercial company is to hide any flaws with its product rather than tell you about it.
Yeah, this is true. I think there are arguments on both sides. Microsoft would be aware of flaws in Windows that the world would not be aware of, and therefore they can patch them on their own time scale. But if this bug has been there for 4 years, that doesn't really do any favors or justice, or doesn't really answer the question for the open source community, because clearly the testing or the security validation hasn't happened. I mean, I know that Microsoft regularly run security reviews on all of their products since Windows XP Service Pack 2, because that was when Microsoft really, pulled up their shoelaces on the security game, because they want to make sure that there's no problems like this. And I'm not saying there aren't in Windows, there probably is, but I think having commercial organizations behind core components like this. I mean, do you remember the Heartbleed attack on OpenSSL?
That was bad.
Almost everything that used SSL was using OpenSSL, which had a massive flaw in. And the OpenSSL community was receiving thousands of dollars a year in funding when they should have been receiving millions of dollars in funding, because nobody was really maintaining it and watching it. And people just assumed that it worked.
Yeah, I think it was one developer, wasn't it, that was doing most of the work, pretty much on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's changed a little bit now as a result of Heartbleed. I think organizations, like Apple and Google and Facebook and all the big tech giants from the States are investing, putting the effort in to make sure that these security holes are patched. Because as you say, there are two ways of doing it. I mean, one is to strengthen open source, or two is to go proprietary and closed. Now, the problem with proprietary and closed is you just have to trust the company with the closed system that they're doing a good job. And even Google themselves, as we found out with Nest, often don't know what they're doing, even when it comes to proprietary and closed systems. So I think open generally philosophically is better, but both systems are flawed.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me you've got some happy information for our final.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, on a Google story, just to kind of finish this off, Thomas Tamlin in Huffington Post says, knock knock. Google has released another video chat application, and this time it's called Duo. It works on iPhones and Android devices, and you're thinking video application, video conferencing, who cares? It's got a feature called Knock Knock, whereby when you ring somebody, it can show you the live video of who it is that's calling you. And they're showing a little kind of
Hang on, wait a minute. Just rewind. You're saying that if I call you on Duo, you get to see my face whether you accept the call or not?
Yes.
That's a bit creepy.
It's no different, though, to looking through the peephole on your front door.
I don't want to look through your peephole, James.
Yeah,
Let's face it, this
okay.
is going to be you.
That's really rude. Why not? What's wrong?
Crikey, yeah. Ring me. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, James, as soon as we get this system, does it work on iOS as well as Android?
Yeah, iPhones, yeah, it does.
As soon as we get this, we'll have to do a test.
I'm gonna download it on my iPhone now.
We'll have to see who can shock the other one the most with their.
Oh, dear. Well, they do say in the article, they do say that it's an optional feature. You've got to turn it on, but okay, it's a bit of a gimmick and whatever. What do you think of Duo? I mean, another video conferencing application?
Well, presumably the reason they're creating another video conferencing application is because they've completely failed with all the other ones they've created, and they're having another go. Now, I think there are two unique things about Duo, which I'd just like to call out. One is the fact that it's mobile only. There is no desktop client. This is just for mobile.
Is that just through laziness? Or?
Well, no. I think they've actually stated that they're focusing on mobile. They want to make the mobile experience really good and don't want to confuse everyone by having an inconsistent experience across platforms. And the second thing which I found interesting about it was the team that did the technology for Duo were the WebRTC team. So WebRTC is an open standard for microphone and video access. It's an HTML5 standard, which allows essentially browser technology to tap directly into the hardware, graphics card, microphone, cameras of a device with very little in between. So therefore, it improves things like frame rate and audio quality. And it was that team that developed Duo. So I'm expecting the experience to be very smooth and good because there's less OS between your knock and my screen.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, okay, if they're using WebRTC, great. I mean, it makes sense.
But who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What we're really saying is, if it's really smooth and fast, well, that's better than whatever we had before, whatever Skype or whatever everybody uses.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with Skype.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with Skype. I would say it's a direct competitor to Skype. It's cross-platform, isn't it? First of all, and second of all, but I would say this knock feature. Does it creep you out a little bit? I mean, I know it's voluntary and all that, but is it enabled by default?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that would be a mistake on their part if they do that. I'm looking. I can't find it in the App Store. Maybe it's not propagated
I found
yet.
it in the Google Play Store, but you had to, I don't know what they called it, sign up to be notified when it's available. So I think it's been made available to some reviewers, but maybe it hasn't gone public or won't go public until the weekend.
Well, it's on the Apple Store. Although that's the US store, though. Let me have a look. Maybe it's on the US store only.
Oh, is it? Do you think it's launching in the US?
If it is, that would be like really rude, and they'll be very upset.
It'd be churlish.
It would. No, it's not. It's not there. It's not on the app. It's not on the App Store.
All right. Well, how are we going to have to call this one, aren't we? Are they making a mistake by having another go? And is this show me your big knock feature a step too far for Google? I don't know how to call this one.
No, it's a Techtasm. It's another video app. If it doesn't have a desktop version, the uses are going to be limited because I don't know about you, but certainly with Viber, which is what my wife and I use, it's handy having it on your PC.
Yeah.
So a bit of quick IM and whatever, that's useful. Yep, Techtasm from me.
Well, I think you might be right, actually. Their previous product, Hangouts, had an indifferent desktop experience. Worked reasonably well on a phone, but again, overheated the phone. If you compare the way Hangouts performs to audio on WhatsApp, or even Facebook Messenger, I mean, it heats my phone up just making an audio call on Hangouts. That's no video. And whereas WhatsApp doesn't. So you think they're doing something wrong here. So, I mean, I want to give them another chance. As you know, I quite like what Google does, but I think this is a Techtasm 2. Sadly, that is it for this week. You can find us, James, at facebook.com/Techtasm, subscribe in the usual places, and contact us at feedback@techtasm.com. Now we record every Tuesday night, so watch out for next week's episode. There may be one, even though I am on vacation. But we'll see. But this is me, Robin Yellow.
And me, James Woodall.
Asking the question on your behalf. Is it real, or is it just a Techtasm?